we're at ATG HQ with Ryan. What was your weakest big link when you started ATG, and how has it changed? What did you do to work on it?
I think and honestly, all of them were really horrible for me, every area, but the Nordics were one of the weakest parts for me.
Really?
I couldn't even resist it for like 2 seconds on the way down. Being able to just progress through that exercise to be able to get to a full Nordic has taken me over a year. That was one thing that I felt like really made a big impact on my athleticism, as well as my hamstring started to get stronger.
Nice. So is that one of the lifts you're the most proud of? Or?
Definitely, just because, not only because I've come so far, but I've spent so much time doing the Nordics, and you know how Nordics are, they're not very easy. To grind through those in a workout is a big mental challenge as well.
Sweet, that took you only a year. That's really good, actually.
12 months straight, that's a long time though.
And how does that translate into your sport?
I think it's just overall helped me a lot with durability and not having injuries. I think as the hamstring gets stronger behind the knee, it kind of locks things down a little bit more for you. But I think overall having stronger hamstrings is going to help you in every other lift that you do. So whether you're squatting or you're doing split squats or whatever it is, you're going to be able to progress in those exercises as well, which is going to lead you to more gains, more athleticism.
Right, having balance between your squat, your knee extension, and your knee flexion. 100%.
Totally.
And then it makes you faster on the court, which is that's never a bad thing, right? Being explosive, having
for sure.
more strength.
Let me ask you this question: how important do you think progressing the tib raise is for being a better athlete?
For my sport is martial arts. For my sport, I would say balance helps you be on your toes more often, have more endurance for that. Avoid knee pain, because the stronger you're on the lower leg, the less you're going to have impact coming up towards your knee. That's huge. For your sport, I think it's probably one of the biggest things, just working the opposite of that ankle extension, because you're able to absorb more impact when you come down. It allows you to jump more often, which is then going to lead to higher levels of athleticism just because you're able to practice your sport more. The biggest thing that's going to make you better at your sport is being on the court more often. If you can do anything to avoid injuries, I think you should do it. Get stronger in that position.
It's funny that because I saw a tweet earlier, a Twitter thread that had like 1 million views talking about how to get rid of shin splints. And there wasn't one time in the entire thread where he talked about strengthening the tibialis, which I think is just baffling. And it's just crazy that that's what the norm, what people think about shin splints and how important tib raises can actually be for you.
Dude, that's literally what helped me get rid of my shin splints.
Same, I had them for 3 years straight. Yeah, I was like doing the ice massages, the KT tape. I did that all throughout my high school and college career, and then I started doing tib raises, and I haven't had a problem since. So
that's wild. It's something that doesn't get talked about enough, and I'm not sure why it is, but the Rice method, it's been taken back by the same person that came up with it. He actually has a completely different view on what you should do whenever you have an injury. Now he says movement and heat. As before, rest, ice, elevate, which is the complete opposite. He took it back, and he was somebody who was able to own up to his own mistake. That's actually like, hey, this doesn't work. This is only going to get you more injured. But it doesn't get talked about enough. And like you said, it was probably in that article, right? Rest, ice, elevate, like get rid of shin splints. I think that's really interesting. People can't go back on what they've already said. I think that's something that's to be said is really big in growing up as a person, self-development, like being able to realize when you were wrong and take that back and correct it.
Totally.
Right?
I think it's one thing about the tibialis too, and it's very much how the human body works. The relationship between the tibialis and the calf in the back of the leg is one that is like a lever, and I would compare it to the bicep and the tricep.
Right.
If your biceps are really strong but your triceps aren't, you're going to have problems there, right? And it's the same exact thing in the leg, right? If we can get that ratio to be closer to 1-to-1, that's when you're going to see freak athleticism. Never going to have ankle problems, never going to have shin splints. But I would say most people walk around and that ratio is 5-to-1, especially athletes. I remember reading that in a book by the head strength and conditioning coach for Cal Berkeley, and he was talking about how that ratio needed to be 1-to-1, but that was published years ago, and it's not even talked about anymore.
That's one thing I noticed with most of my clients that have shin splints. They have huge calves, and then when you make them do tib raises, like gas out after 10 reps.
Right.
Well, clearly there's an imbalance here. It doesn't get talked about enough, right? What is, I would say, aside from the Nordic, what other some big moves that you noticed made a huge difference from the ATG system into your game as a basketball player?
I would say the good mornings have been crucial, and there's so many reasons as to why I think they're beneficial, but I definitely see the translation when I didn't do them compared to now, and that's one of the staples in my workouts and how I feel on the court. My defense, my ability to play low. I just feel a lot more comfortable in those positions that you see pretty often in the game of basketball. Those have definitely made a big, dramatic difference for me in those areas.
100%. I think you should overlay a video of you doing the See Good Morning right now, because when you do that movement, like you said, play low, right? You're in that same position, and then move inside to side, low. You want to be more comfortable in here, so the stronger you are in that position, the more comfortable you're going to be while you're playing.
Totally.
I think it translates directly to so many sports. Like you mentioned your volleyball player, right? And then other parts of the system, we can talk about that later, but you mentioned your volleyball player was getting really low, and she was glad that we did See Good Morning and split squat, because that's literally that position, right?
Yeah.
You're going low for like a volleyball. You're here, one, because you're exploding here with your back, so that's See Good Morning, and then here you're in the split squat position, right?
Yeah, I think when it comes to, obviously we're pretty bought into this entire system, but I think just in general, if you're an athlete or you're a coach, it's pretty easy to find out what you need to work on, because you can just take moments from the sport, the game, and find like those positions and then strengthen those positions, right? So we're seeing those positions as a volleyball player when you're in that split squat position. We need to go work on that same position, right? You see over and over again, you see as a basketball player in defense, being able to sit low like that, right? So that's something that we need to work on and train. And you could find that all over the place. You see that when you go to load in for a jump, the knee goes over your toe. And that's that's why we train step downs. Right. It's not rocket science on what you need to work on out here, because you can see those positions and those moments happen over and over.
And then you can take clues too, because it's not just a sport-specific motion. I think, and you can elaborate on this, but in basketball, we were talking about this earlier, when you're doing a lot of that quarter knee position, so you're getting lots of step-up movements. A lot of that sport is step-up dominant, right? That quarter squat position. People think they should just get strong in that quarter squat and avoid squatting all the way down. But what the clues you take from it is you're getting so much of this in your sport, you can actually take the opposite, right? So like squatting to full depth. If you get really strong here, you can actually improve your basketball ability to jump higher, because you're strengthening those knees, right? You're putting all this load here. While this is muscle dominant, this one's going to be tendon dominant. And strengthening your tendons here is only going to make you stronger. But most people avoid it. Why do you think that is?
I think it's hard and it's uncomfortable, and you don't really see the results instantly. I think that's a big reason. But I think one thing too, that if it's going to help you become a better athlete to do that, great, right? But what I would say and recommend for most players in volleyball, whatever sport it might be, if you have knee pain, you should be doing this not only because you want to become a better athlete, but I want to see you on the court, right? If you're not able to be on the court every single day in practice and really push yourself and challenge yourself, then you're falling behind. Right? Tom Brady credits his success to the fact that not only did he play for all of these seasons, but he rarely missed a practice. And if you can do that for 10 years straight, think about how much better you're going to get than compared to the other person that has knee pain that's sitting out twice a week. Right. Not only should you do that stuff, the full range to become a better athlete, which it's going to help you do, but also just to stay fresh and stay healthy, so that when it's February and it's the middle of the season, your body is in shambles, you're still able to go out on the court and perform while your teammates getting rehab during practice.
I think that circles back to your first question, which was, why do you think tib raises is so important? It's because it's the opposite of what you're doing. You balance out the body by strength training, by doing the opposite of the motions that you're always doing on the court.
Right.
You're extending your ankles, you're extending your knees, you're extending your hips. So then you should do the opposite too, right?
Yep.
Ankle flexion, tib raises, knee flexion, hamstring curls or Nordics, like you mentioned is your favorite one now, and then hip flexion, which is reverse squat or guard hammer raises. There's tons of examples in the ATG system.
Cool, man.
Awesome, man.
That was good. I thought that was
awesome podcast, brother.
For sure,
Glad to have you here. I know it's a short time, but hope you enjoy your stay here in Clearwater. We're working on weak links, making this body stronger. Something that Mark Bell always says. You know what he says?
No.
Yeah, dude. There's so much amazing wisdom and knowledge in this community. It's like Ben. He takes the best from many different systems, like Westside Barbell. I know you did reverse hypers yesterday. Then Mark Bell, who's also Westside Barbell, he always says strength. Now I forgot.
Wow.
We'll say this on the podcast. Strength is not a weakness, and weakness is never a strength. So no matter where you're getting strong, that's going to be a positive, right? It's never going to be a negative. And then you have Kadur Ziani. You've got Nsima now who's pitching in. There's so much knowledge and wisdom. It's not just Ben Patrick, although he's obviously like the main creator of it.
Right.
You also have people like Keegan Smith, and then you add your own thing, right?
Totally.
You observe what you're doing with your clients. Really, it's just shit that works for ATG. There's not really any dogma ideology where it's like, hey, well, you can only do ATG. It's more like, hey, what can we integrate from other systems to put in
totally, man,
that actually works?
And taking the ATG method and then adapting it, like I was talking about earlier, adapting it for my athletes. We're still doing everything ATG, but we might do it completely different than the way you do it. And the way that we superset, the way that we warm up, the way that we cool down, you can mix and match so many different combinations in there to get the specific adaptation that you're looking for. Yeah. I think that's the one thing that's really cool as well. And you start to mix and match that with other methods you learn outside of it, you can pretty much take someone to a completely different level.
100%.
But it's awesome to meet the relationships, the conversations. Like, this is why you joined ATG, though.
100%. You came all the way from Canton, Ohio? Or
Toledo, Ohio.
You came all the way from Toledo, Ohio down here just to visit the gym. I think that speaks in itself.
Totally, man.
I fucking moved down 7 hours away from Georgia just to be around like-minded people. And this is so much better than where I live because nobody knows about this stuff. People like don't listen to you about the holistic nutrition. They don't listen to you about movement because they're just not in tune with it. It's great to find like-minded people to be able to connect like this and progress in our own fields. You're strength training for basketball. I'm trying to target people that need help with mobility because I had such a hard time with it. Just improving overall lifestyle and longevity. But also I love MMA, so I'm always going to work with those people. So it's just great to be able to help each other with mobility, with explosiveness, whatever your specialty is, because there's so much to provide, and we're all just here to help people and serve.
Totally.
Right?
Awesome, man.
Awesome, brother.
Yeah,
hey,
yes, sir.
Take care.